council meeting last night, but before it we had a work session, and we had a Joseph Minkowski who with Urban 3, and he kind of did a presentation on a pre-presentation of what he's trying to accomplish with a study that we did the first reading on last night, and it's really exciting. I think council got really behind it. He comes in, looks at your city, and kind of puts things into a dollar value of what your investments will return, what your liabilities will be. He gave a few examples of one city. I've forgotten the city. It was up east, where it was downtown, and it was just decimated. I mean, just no one was there. But the whole city was boarded up, and
that was the city of Asheville.
Well, yeah, that's right. It's
Asheville, North Carolina.
And then they had one group, nonprofit, kind of come in and started making improvements here and there, and kind of changing the buildings and investing in it. And after, I think the downtown area was worth like $100 million. They put in about 26, and then over a short time, all of a sudden, the value of downtown was 520 or 30 million. And it really goes to show the importance of a downtown area, and what that investment in downtown, what that will return to the city, and the life of the city, and the strength of it, and that was a bigger city. But you take our little town of Lebanon here, what we've done here on the square of improving the water and the sewer before we got started, and then doing the investment of the square, and renovations right there. The new life that has happened. I mean, during the Christmas, I went door to door to a lot of the stores and said, "How are y'all doing?" And I was getting responses like, "Best Christmas we've ever had." Awesome. And you can see it by the traffic down here of the cars and people are coming. We still have a lot to do. There are still several buildings that need to find owners, and that want to work out of those buildings and all. But I think it's happening. I'll tell you, I did call, before we had a group come in, a couple that kind of come in, and we kind of did a tour of all the places and all. I've reached back out to a few of them, and they're planning to come back because they heard of what happened at Christmas. They keep hearing the positive things in Lebanon and what all's happening, and so they're making plans to get with me and come back and kind of go back through. And that was a restaurant group and all, and I hope that we can make something positive. We need a good restaurant downtown. But anyway, with this study going on, hello Phil, how you doing?
Good morning, how are you?
Good. And with that, I think we'll have a better understanding of what would be the better investment and all for the city, and kind of look at things a little different. So
one of the things about that study that's very exciting, but they find the common denominator of your potential revenue per acre in your city, and what your potential cost are, or expenditures per acre are. They also gave some example of cities that have gone out and just taken in all these subdivisions and taken in all these areas and all, and never had the money to keep the infrastructure up. And so in 20 years, the city's broke because they can't pave streets, they can't do anything, but they, in the name of growth, just went out and sucked up everything they could suck up, and there was no long-term planning or looking at how are we going to support the infrastructure we've just sucked up.
The back end costs.
Yeah. And so it's extremely analytical in per acre revenue potential, cost potential, and everything, which is the kind of stuff that needs to be at the foundation of all city planning.
Yeah. if anyone doesn't know, it's Robert Springer. He's one of the best hires I've been able to make here at the city. He does those numbers and really studies them and everything. One of the other things that we're been looking at is we're getting ready to start the budget again. And the process, we're already doing it, having people already turned in their budgets and all to you so that you can kind of put in and all, but we'll be having a lot of budget meetings going here real soon. I think the process is going to go even smoother this year. The one thing that we are looking at is we feel like that a lot of the city employees, they're a lot of them are 70% of going rate for what people in other places and all being paid. So we're looking at that along with offering kind of hand in hand with our pay, but it's also with our health insurance and all of looking at ways that we can continue to save on that. Over the last 2 years, we've reduced our health costs by over $1 million. We hope to continue that with some additional savings by offering another kind of HSA package that we feel like it will move people from that higher cost product down to a different cost, but it's better for them and it's a savings for us. And if we're able to do that, we feel like trying to change that mode of the past where, hey, you don't get no money working here at the city, but you got great health insurance. Well, we're redefining that one-fit-all kind of insurance mentality, changing it to get our costs down so that we can now try to bring up the pay for a lot of our employees. And these things will be going hand in hand. And the census, this is kind of how I do. I just kind of throw a bunch of things out. And census, when did I come to you? I said, we're going to do a census. And you said, huh? Okay. And what was that, about end of October, September?
It was early August.
October.
We got started the last week of August.
Yeah. So I came to her, I said, we're going to do a census. And he said, really? What? Well, we did it. And we looked at hiring some groups, but we didn't feel like they had that hometown connection to know what would be good for us. And instead of paying out $120,000 for some group to come in and do it, we kind of put together our own team. We hired one company to kind of be a little bit of consulting and didn't really pay that much for them, but they were very useful and helpful. But we did it ourselves, and we're going to save money on that budget, I feel like. But our goal was to get over 30,000. In 2010, we were 26,200, 100, something like that. Our last account that we had, Scott McCrae gave us a number yesterday of 31,700.
About 700.
Something like that. There's still a few more out there, so we're going to try to get those other people, final ones, counted. Hopefully we'll be over 32,000, which will generate for the city about 600,000 plus in additional dollars. Yes, Bill.
Question: are you accepting questions at this time?
Oh yeah. This is just I talk until somebody wants to ask something.
Very good, very good. Help me. First of all, I think the census is great. It's a great opportunity right there. I'm sorry. Help me understand. Does the state just accept the data that we provide them? How do they verify that?
There's a verification process. You can pay the state to verify it. They have a verification process. It's pretty expensive for the state to do it themselves, but they are economic development districts around, and they do it as well. And so we have got a contract with one of them that will be doing the verification. They'll come in and spend several days going to doors and checking. There's a certain percent that they just check, and
Sure.
You're allowed a 5% margin margin of error. And so there is a verification process.
So they verify our data and there's a formula to their verification.
Right.
Okay, all right.
And with that, that with more people, then that means more of our share that we're able to get. It's dollars that are due the city. We just have to show our numbers and have them verified.
Mm-hmm.
That dollar, it comes out of about 5 or 6 different revenue sharings.
Right.
Of
Sales tax.
Sales tax.
State sales tax makes up most of it.
Yeah.
It's about $74 out of 116.
Yeah.
But there are some state shared revenue in other pots as well. I don't have that list.
But the total comes out to about $116 per additional person that we get. So we'll hopefully be over 5,000 additional people. This is one number that Robert pulled together for, and it's just awesome. And I don't have the paper here, so I'm talking from the top of my head.
I'll remember it.
2000, we had about 20,000 people.
Right.
In 2015, now we're going to be 32,000. About 32,000. About a 54% increase in population. Now, back in our full-time employees, back in 2000 to today, we have reduced the manpower by 2.9%. We have 54% increase in population with 2.9% reduction in full-time people. And most of that full-time people has come in the expansion of the fire department and in the police department. So the rest of the city is doing so much more for so many more people with less people.
So that reduction is of city employees?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Full-time city employees.
Yeah. Now, you got to remember, too, years ago when they added the 3rd fire hall, well, they just took the manpower we had and dispersed it among those 3. They didn't add any new firemen. So that's why over the last year you do have about a 14% increase in the fire department staff. Mm-hmm. But that should have been done years ago when that 3rd fire hall came, but it wasn't. So.
And the mayor shared with you the growth numbers from 2000 to 2015. Another interesting thing is the amount of growth from 2000 to 2010 was the same as it's been from 10 to 5 to 15.
That was my next question.
So
what's the trajectory look like?
The last 5 years grew at the same pace that the previous 10 years grew.
We're kind of creating that hockey stick,
and,
you know.
And I mean, there's no indication and no reason to believe with the potential to keep developing even out toward 109 in that area that, the growth is not going to continue. But there, and I mentioned this to the mayor, when you increase your customer base by 54%, but you've got a decrease of full-time employees waiting on that customer base of almost 3%. Obviously, you can say we've increased efficiencies tremendously. For example, in the sanitation department, all those people are generating trash. Yeah. And so they're picking up more trash at more residences than they ever have. Mm-hmm. They've added 1 employee in the last 15 years.
And 14 people is the crew that does the garbage.
Part of that,
for the whole city.
Part of that is, like recently, they invested in a more efficient truck that one person can operate and do instead of 3 people on that truck. But there also reaches the point where if you don't have an adequate number of people to service your customer base, then it becomes not an efficiency issue, but a quality of services issue. And so it's tremendous to be able to look at a statistic and say we have improved the efficiency of our workforce tremendously, and we're a great steward of the taxpayers' dollars, and this is really wonderful. But at some point, you know, in reason two, you've got to start staffing up some too. If you're going to sustain that kind of growth rate, then there's a price that goes with that growth.
Is that in
rate.
your budget for 16 or 17? And
Well,
you're going to obviously going to add people. If we're going to grow at that kind of pace,
there
you're
will
looking at
be
50,000
some
people in
positions.
2030.
There will be some positions, but even the council, when it had its strategic planning session on a Saturday a few weeks ago, one of the things that they wanted to see was the planning department staffed up some.
And codes.
And that's
Yeah.
been one of the areas that has not been. And the city's grown tremendously, and there's more planning work, more codes work and everything.
With this, the growth that we've seen from 2010 to 15, is there anything in particular that has started that uptick? Is it? I'm sure it's a combination of things.
Well,
but something either in the county,
Yeah,
is Metro doing?
Well, no, it's the growth of Nashville itself and the recognition. But along with that, it's the location.
Mm-hmm.
You know, your one-day drive to 75% roughly or so of the whole population in the United States. So logistics play a big important of our growth. You know, that's why the Under Armours, Amazons, the Starbucks, the new one, porcelain, wonderful porcelain, is coming into town. That's why the expansions to the other, and that's why we have so many jobs. That's why our employment is like 4.5 or 6, something like that. Employers are looking for people, and people know that jobs are here, and so other parts of the country that don't have enough jobs, people are moving here. So we've got a big push in growth because we have a lot of jobs. And we got more jobs on the way. So, you know, next year or so, we still expect a good increase in growth and all.
But you can tighten your belt, and that's a great thing. And then you reach the point of almost maximum efficiency, and then it becomes, you know, I liken this to a retail business. If any one of these stores down here had a 50% increase in customer traffic, but kept their number of clerks at the same, or the retail people at the same, then they'd be losing business pretty soon. And so there is a point at which, in order to maintain a quality service, you've got to have the adequate number of people. The second thing is the mayor made reference to it a moment ago, and I think this is going to be huge. And one of the city's got a work session on it next Tuesday night, but we commissioned a private company to come in and do a full compensation analysis for the city on every position in the city. And it is a very important study, in my opinion, because not only is customer service based on your number of people, but it's on your quality of your workforce as well. And the mayor referenced a statistic that we do have some employees that are in the 70% range of the current market value of Middle Tennessee in this area, in this region. We just lost a really good employee here last year to Carthage that paid $3 an hour more for the same position. Well, what they're doing in Carthage, work level wise, is a fraction of what they were doing here for this population. They pay $3 an hour more for that position. So
Let's work more money.
we go through retraining somebody to take that person's place. They lasted 12 months. Bridgestone hired them, and now we're back in the retraining mode. So at some point it becomes inefficient to be a training ground for everybody else and to get them the knowledge and the experience so that somebody can pay them a going market rate and hire them away from you. So there is going to be some adjustments that are going to need to be made for us to regain some competitiveness in the, and I don't want to eat up your time, but this whole strategy that was real popular back in 1990, in the early 90s, let's don't pay anybody anything because wages were going up 5 and 6, 7%, health insurance was going up 1%. That was a great deal for the employer because he could offer a lot of benefits and it was saving him money because the going wages were going up 5 and 6% annually, and he was not having to go up on that, but he was just paying more in health insurance and other benefits, and they were going up very small. That strategy was really great in 1990. The problem is the world changed, and it became a failed strategy in the late 90s and early 2000, because health insurance started going up 7, 8, and 10% a year, and wages were going up 1 or 2. And if you had a situation like the city did, where it didn't change its strategy, it stuck with the strategy, all of a sudden you're hemorrhaging on health insurance costs, and you're not competitive in the wage market. So what we were finding was we'd post a job, and sometimes we'd post a job 3 times before we could get enough people to apply for it to pick somebody, because we were running $3 an hour, $4 an hour below market on that. The other thing, it became not only a failed strategy for the city, it became a failed strategy for our employees. You can't make a house payment and a car payment with your health insurance. And so while you need a reasonably good health insurance, you also need to be able to earn enough to be able to pay your bills. And so I'm real excited that the last 2 years the council and the mayor have made a tremendous amount of progress in turning that around. And this study is going to be the catalyst for us completing that and being able to adjust some pays to get in a more competitive situation, but yet still retain a good health insurance.
And we've got a plan on how we're going to do it, and it's basically, as we talked about it the other day, it's a market adjustment in our pay scale for our employees and all. So we feel like you know, the service for the dollar and all, we've shown that we're doing a good job of the taxpayers' dollars for that end. But we also realize that, well, like in his department, the accountant, he's on his 3rd accountant in 2 years. I mean, and got a chance, from what we heard yesterday, might lose in this one. So, I mean, you know, the cost to retrain, rehire, and get them up to speed is expensive. So, but we have a lot of other issues all across the city, and you know, so we're working on those quite a bit, a lot of things. The gasification, you know, we got a lot of good projects going. Gasification, the solar project that we have going, they'll be starting breaking ground and doing a lot of things here this next month, I think. They said February. We've oh gosh, what?
You jumped. I thought you were still talking about the wages and such. With the 54% increase in population, and taxes have been relatively stable. Sales tax obviously has gone up. You have that much of a population. So to me, and I don't know your budget, there's got to be room in that budget for what you're talking about, because if we've had a 54% increase in population, and we've got Trousdale County, Smith County, the other counties that come into Wilson County a lot for tax, for sales tax, and all the expo centers going, all these things, I'm making the assumption that the increase in salaries and benefits and these things that you're talking about, which makes complete sense, the money's there or coming because of what's happening. Yes. That's what we're always working at. You know, it's. I'm getting right to that property tax check, and I don't like it.
Yeah. Well, you don't mind it to the city.
No. That's worth the trash pickup right there. But the county, that $3,000 check to the county is going to hurt.
I know.
Well, yeah. I mean, it all boils down to how do you pay for it? If this study comes back and says that you're paying your firemen $5 an hour less than what you should be, how do you pay for that to get back to the level where you should be?
I think a lot of it is in the study. It kind of gave a minimum and a high, and we kind of be looking at where we hope to achieve, and then we set a plan of how we make 1 or 2 steps or how we get to there, whether it's at 1 year or over 2 or whatever. But as Derek was asking, the dollars that are happened here because of the increase in sales tax and all, the dollars that are there because of the census improvement and everything and the dollars that we project that we'll be saving by making continued changes in our health care program that we're offering. We feel like it now will have 3 years coming up of major reductions in that cost, which there's not a lot of other governments or people that can say that they've been doing that. And so with all that combination, we feel like we can add the extra people that are needed to make the quality service, but also address the concerns of us losing good quality people too.
And I'd emphasize it's not going to be a one-time correction. And that's what this is. It's a correction. It's not going to be a one-time correction. It's going to take several years to get it back to a reasonable market level. But the savings from, again, this is a set number of dollars that's invested in benefits and pay, and we're doing some of this. We're not just leaving the benefit here and adjusting the pay. It's been working for the last 2 years. We have made savings in our health insurance. We've taken those savings and invested some of that in our pay scale. And so that same scenario will happen again this year. I don't think in order to get the first initial part of the progress made in that direction is going to be a sticker shock. It's not a huge amount of money. There is growth in the sales tax. There's no question about that. This year we budgeted a more reasonable level of that growth, and so we finished this last fiscal year 1.6 million in the black. That will not happen this year because we raised our budget expectations of some of that. And so there's also, you reach a point too where the city is providing a number of services that they don't get any kind of fee for.
Like your garbage.
Like your garbage. And if you'll compare it to most other cities, we don't have anybody that moves in and comes up to City Hall to get utilities connected that believes that we don't have a fee for pickup on trash.
You and I have had that conversation in the past.
I mean, people that move in, just like myself. And
really?
All, it's like, really?
Really?
Because either it's done like Mount Juliet where there's a private company and they're paying them, or there's a lower rate than the government's doing it. But the city has eaten stormwater fees that the federal government required, and did not pass any of that on, which most of the other municipalities passed on to their citizens. The city's not charged anything in sanitation fees. And so there's a number of fees that are charged, because we did a lot of looking at this around the area that Lebanon traditionally has not charged. So, at some point, is there going to have to be some revenue increases? And the answer is obviously down the road, there's even more taking care of what we've got already. Yeah. And so
kind of the philosophy is kind of take care of what we have, but also leaving a little bit there for the future growth and expansion. One other thing too, and it started making me think as you were talking about absorbing some of the fees. One of the things that we felt like it was hurting our city and attracting office complex and different things was our facility tax kind of increases. You got about two levels of fees, and then we had a third one that no one could really understand. Well, for like in water and sewer. So we eliminated that in this last budget when we did the whole rate change and everything, and we changing the philosophy of the way we're doing our water and sewer rates and all. But we feel like we have set a plan now in place that over the next 8 to 10 years that we won't have to be asking the 80% or more of our residential customers for any kind of increase in water. You might have a small thing that happens on sewer because we're trying to do that philosophy that water and sewer really aren't together, but they're stand on their own. And so you know, and the idea of discounting, drastically wholesaling, discounted, almost like fire selling your water that still costs you up here, you know, we couldn't live with that philosophy, so we're changing that a little bit. But that's a great thing for our residents. One other thing that we have on budget right now is that we realize is you got some citizens that the base rate is this amount and the rest of the city is at this amount. I think you're affected like that on the sewer and all because we don't sell you water. We felt like that's wrong. So in this budget, we're looking
Well,
at...
exactly.
No, I get city water. I'm in Richmond Hills.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so you're at lower
But
rate.
like Five Oaks
But Five
has
Oaks,
the-
no, they're about $2, $2.50.
Well, it's on the agenda for
on the
January the
bill.
19th.
So-
It's on the agenda for January the 19th. The mayor's presenting a ordinance, and it will make for residential and commercial customers of sewer within the city limits will all be charged one rate instead of having a two-rate system. And that is going to mean on a minimum bill of $2.50 a month savings for those that bought just sewer services from the city. So it is it's a very positive thing. I think it's more equitable.
It is more.
And it's
And
fair.
one of the things that we started last April, the council approved it, we went to them, and as the mayor said, he didn't think it was right, but again, when we researched it, we found out other cities had made the change decades ago, and we had not, of getting away from volume discounts for water and sewer. And the reason is the scale of efficiencies don't apply on a utility like that. It costs just as much to process the 100,000 gallon of sewage as it does the first gallon.
Sure.
And so we don't save any money when you go to XYZ business, big, huge business down here, and they're using 100,000 gallons of water or processing sewage, and we're charging them for that. It costs us just as much as it does for the little widow woman over here on Hill Street, and she's got one bathroom. She, in the past, had been paying twice per gallon what that huge corporate entity was. And we made a lot of progress last year in raising that on the back end and trying to eliminate. Once again, if you've not been doing something right for 30 years,
Takes a while to
you
get it
can't
corrected.
just go in and, I mean, it would be huge sticker shock that's just corrected at one blow.
Oh, yeah.
So on the 19th, we'll come in, and while we're making a more equitable thing for the residences and the commercial entities in the city on sewer, the back end volume discount, we're adjusting it again. And that will more than offset that
Well,
adjustment on the front end.
The big change that has happened since '08, since when I was first elected, in the water and sewer, we had negatives. I mean, we were losing money. We've made our changes. We've redone now. Now we have a good reserve, and we have a plan in place that's going to really, I think, look after our citizens or buffer them from major increases in water and sewer. So that's a huge strive in just water and sewer alone. Gas, we got an excellent department head there, Jerry Snodgrass. The reserves are real strong. We're able to expand by paying for expansions, and our rates are lower than any of these others around here. So,
And one question that I get asked is, why do we borrow sometimes from gas or the water funds for the general fund? For example, last night, one of the
For the
proposals was
silent
the
whistle,
quiet
quiet
zones
zone.
around the railway stops, and it was going to be a $700,000 gas loan to the general fund. And the reason for that is the state mandates that we keep all those monies separate. Gas and water and sewer are enterprise funds. They cannot be commingled with the general fund. They have to stand on their own to ensure the financial solidity of those utilities. which is right. That's the way it ought to be. What the state does say is that those funds can be invested. For example, we keep any extra reserves that we don't think we'll need immediately, like within a 10 or 12 month period, we'll keep in short-term CDs for gas and water and sewer, and some of it in money market for readily accessible. So what they can do, though, is, for example, right now, if the going rate on a CD for gas is 0.5% for a year, I can loan that money to the general fund and charge the general fund 1%, which is double what gas was earning, but it's half of what the market rate would be if I borrowed it straight going into the market. So it's actually saving the general fund money to borrow from the gas fund. It's doubling their return. So it's a win-win for the city to be able to use those financial resources, because I can't use those resources to pay anything over in the general fund.
And every time we do this, we have to send the plan to
Right.
the state comptroller for their approval.
Yeah, the state has to approve it, so it's not something the city just does, willy-nilly or whatever. They
On the fly.
review it, they check your reserves, they look at what you're spending and see whether or not that you're in financial shape enough. And, somebody will also ask sometimes, why would you have a reserve in a utility? And the answer is, particularly in water sewer, even more than gas, but you've got some still aged parts of this city that have to be repaired. You've also got new growth where they're out there putting stuff down. And going back to what I referenced earlier, every time you build all this infrastructure, you got to maintain it. And so you do want reserves so that you don't come in. Rob Cesternino came in yesterday and just got back from 2 weeks in New York. The city where his family's from just had a 10% across the board rate increase on all the utilities up there because they are having to generate money to repair infrastructure to meet the federal standards now. And we don't want to get in that situation where you start having large increases.
When I came in, and we have had a steady investment in those repairs. Because when I came in to mayor here, we had something like 28 overflows in sewer. Now this last year, I think we just had one overflow. I mean, you're making those improvements, We've been here quite a while. We just threw out a lot of stuff. Is there any question before we kind of wrap it up? And anybody have a question? Well, I thank everyone for coming. I enjoyed doing it because a lot of times you'll get a question and it'll make you think in a different way, and sometimes that leads to an answer to a problem that you've been worrying about. So appreciate everybody joining us, and we'll be again here next month for the city chat, and hope everyone join us. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.